So hello and welcome to Kitty Talks. We share inspirational life stories that empower you to create yours. And today I have with me the beautiful Persia Lawson, who is an author, she's a speaker, and she's a love coach. And she's passionate about helping women get and sustain healthy, soulful relationships. So Persia, welcome to Kitty Talks.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for bearing with me. It's been a journey to get to having this podcast.
It has, but we got there in the end.
Yes, and I'm very excited because when I was introduced to Persia through Sassy, who's actually going live this week, and when I went and researched your story, Persia, I was really kind of moved by what you've gone through actually in life and how you're now committing your life to helping other women sustain healthy, soulful relationships. And obviously, when you and I spoke, you were really honest about the fact that that's the thing that you're really working through yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have learned so much about, how to work on yourself when you're single, how to heal all your kind of past relationship stuff, how to attract the right partner for you. And now I'm just over 3 years into my relationship with my wonderful boyfriend. And whilst it's amazing, this is new territory because this is the longest time that I've been in a relationship where I haven't cheated. I haven't kind of looked elsewhere. And so it is, I'm kind of living out the new sort of, when you get past the commitment, in between both commitment and I guess engagement, that's where I am right now. And it's a very interesting place to be, and I'm learning a lot.
It's hard, relationships take work, especially conscious relationships, I think we attract our partners because it's almost like they bring up stuff that we need to look at. So,
exactly. I mean, you could not have said that better. I couldn't have said that better myself. I was actually at a wedding last weekend of two of my good friends. They actually asked me to be the celebrant. So I married them, which was really exciting. And it kind of led me to think, right, I'm actually going to train as a celebrant because I just loved it so much. I love public speaking. I used to be an actress. So the actual role of the celebrants, was very easy for me. However, later on at the wedding, it must have been about 11 p.m., my boyfriend and me had a fight, and we very rarely do have big fights. We've probably got it down to now a few big ones a year, which for me is good going. But we ended up really triggering each other at this wedding and having this really big fight. And even though it was horrible at the time, as fights always are, what it did do, it kind of refocused me and got me really clear on this is why I'm doing this, because struggle with this. And to be honest, show me someone who in a long-term relationship who doesn't have fights sometimes. It's the way, in the moment I didn't react how I would ideally like to react, but my recovery time and our recovery time as a couple is much quicker. I'm now able to own my part in it and take responsibility. Have those conversations where we need to talk about boundaries and all of those things. And I could never have done that before. I would have first sign of, a fight or something difficult, I would have gone and sabotaged it and found someone else or, just run away from the relationship. And whilst, the temptation was there because I'm still me and I do still have, the childhood that I grew up with, but I don't have to succumb to those sort of toxic behaviors anymore, which is such a relief because I really do have the most incredible relationship. I'm so passionate about this work because I think I want everyone, if they want it, to have their own version of this. And so, it's just, I feel so honored and so privileged to get to do this work.
And they say that we always teach what we need to learn most. Yeah. So that would totally resonate. But take us back, because obviously for my listeners, one of the things we love to do on Kitty Talks is talk about the transition and our stories, actually, because I do think our stories are so powerful. And actually, the more we embrace our story, and sometimes our greatest pain can be our greatest pleasure. But can you take me back to your story so our listeners can understand the context, really, of your life?
Sure. Well, in many ways, I'm probably like the least likely person to actually be a love coach because, as I just hinted at then, I was not good at relationships at all up to the age, I think it was my mid-20s where things started to turn. But before that, growing up, my parents were actually both drug addicts, and really, really, you never would have known that on the outside, because on the outside, yeah, they were functioning and it all looked fine. And yet, they were really, really struggling, and it kind of got worse into my early teenage years. My mum went into rehab a couple of times, and she kind of sorted herself out, and, was just really, such an incredible woman, what she overcame.
Alcohol?
Sorry?
Alcohol, predominantly? Or?
Predominantly drug. And then my father, he kind of, when my mum got sober, my dad struggled himself, like it kind of, and then he had to go into rehab. So whilst all that was going on, obviously it was my early teenage years. I'd started getting with boys very, very young age. They kind of, what boys were my drug. This is what I realized is when I kind of, I guess it was early. It was probably around, 8, 9. I started to realize, ooh, I really like attention from boys. Because two really crucial needs that I wasn't getting met. I was getting validated because I was getting attention. And it was escapism. It was escapism from kind of my home life, which was really, really hard at that time. And then so I was having, boyfriends from a young age and cheating on them from a young age. I was very, very used to drama and chaos. That was what was the norm in my family life. And it was actually where it took an interesting turn. It was when I was 16. Dad had come out of rehab. Both of my parents were suddenly sober. I was going into sixth form, and I suddenly had this dream family life that I'd always, always wanted. But I wasn't used to it.
Yeah, so, of course. You want to mix it up a bit.
Exactly. So even the thing is, human beings, we will always gravitate towards what is comfortable and familiar to us, even if that is crap. Even if it's horrible, it's what we know. It's the whole thing of better the devil you know. So when my family life sorted itself out, that's actually when I went outside the family home and just started, all my toxic behaviors with men, which was, already underway. I really ramped them up. And so, when I got to university, my second year of university, I was in Canada studying. I had a boyfriend at home trying to do a long distance relationship, which is quite a normal thing because it means, deep down, it's not to say they're impossible, but for someone like me at that time, it was impossible. And it was a way of kind of having my cake and eating it. Meanwhile, I was cheating on him while I was in Canada. It was very easy to do and hide that. And that was it. It just got more and more intense. And then I went to drama school after university. And of course, I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah.
Risk. Again, high drama, lots of good looking men, then came out of drama school and, I'd always been a straight A student. So when I suddenly wasn't getting the lead roles that I was used to getting at drama school, and I wasn't getting that sort of those boxes ticked, which enabled me to, even though I was really self-destructive in my romantic life, I was still able to kind of go, oh, but A-star student, so I'm fine. And I could show that to my parents. So it was really, my early 20s when I came out of drama school that I just went down. I remember I got an acting job in Shanghai, and it was, I think, 2 months or so. And I ended up putting on 2 stone in 2 months while I was there, which really is some feat.
Yeah.
I was drinking loads. I was out all hours of the night. I was sleeping with, having one night stands with strangers, not using protection. I really, in every way that I could abuse myself, I abused myself. And the men that I was always attracted to were quite dangerous. They were drug addicts or drug dealers themselves, because again, that's what I was used to. And I liked the drama of it.
Yeah.
But it was really when I came back from that that work trip, and my parents picked me up at the airport, and they just, the weight was the thing that I couldn't hide. Everything else I could hide and pretend to my parents everything was fine. My dad said, how would you feel coming on a nice yoga retreat in Thailand? Yeah. And of course, because I was a stint actress, I was like, yes, sign me up, I'm there. Because I knew I'd put on weight. And for me, the weight gain was a hard thing, because the way that I'd always kind of got my fix with men was,
using attention.
Yeah. Well, I was using my body, using my looks. And whilst I kind of still got some attention, because I wasn't feeling good, I wasn't feeling sexy, I wasn't feeling good in myself, that was obviously having a knock-on effect. I wasn't getting the same level of attention. So I was ready to go to Thailand. Now, just before I went to Thailand, a really interesting thing happened. I was lying hungover, of course, in my best friend's bed, and I saw this bookshelf opposite the bed, and I saw this book title, and I don't know what it was, but something in me just gravitated towards it, and I picked this book out, and it was called Women Who Love Too Much by an American therapist called Robin Norwood. This book, I opened this book at a random page, and in it, the sentence I was drawn to, it said something along the lines of, daughters of drug addicts and alcoholics tend to inherit a predisposition to dysfunctional relationships with men. And I was like, oh my God, I just thought that was me. I didn't know this was like a thing. And I started reading this book, and I was like, oh my God, it was just me all over. I'd always had this pattern of being drawn to the bad boys because it was exciting. It was the challenge of getting them. Then I'd get them, and then at some point they'd mess me over. So I'd lose my confidence, and I'd look around for a nice boy to pick up the pieces, find a nice boy. He was all obsessed with me, and then I got bored. So I'd look around, who can I sabotage it with? Oh, there's a bad boy over there. So I'd jump back to that. And it was just
almost like a drama loop going round in a circle.
Yes, yeah. Just going round and round. And this book, it was like, I'm sure my parents had self-help books everywhere. They'd been sober for a long time by this point that I actually read this book. I think it's about, you have to be ready to hear it. And for whatever reason, that Christmas had been, very unhealthy for me, and I was just ready. I really was ready, and I went to Thailand, and because there was no distractions, there was no partying, there was no booze, there was none of that. I was just meditating, doing yoga. It was very calm. I read this book, and I inhaled it. I inhaled that book, and it talked about something called Al-Anon, which is for a 12-step fellowship for the friends and family of addicts and alcoholics. So I was like, okay, I know that there's stuff I need to heal, and I couldn't afford therapy at the time. This is free. I mean, you can give £1 at the end towards, coffee and tea, but it's ultimately 12-step fellowships are free. And I came back from that holiday, and I was sort of Project Persia, fall in love with myself, heal my entire life. I thought it would be done in a month. I realized very quickly that's not how it works. It's an ongoing process for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Now, a few months into that journey of like really working on myself, I actually met a guy. Well, it was someone I'd known since I was 15, but not too well. And he was an addict. He was fresh out of rehab, an amazing guy. We started a relationship we were both not ready for, but that year-long relationship was the hardest but most important relationship of my life. He actually cheated on me, and I found out because I was stalking his Facebook and his computer, and I just, I shouldn't have been on there. But it was like suddenly I was faced with all of the people, all the men that I'd hurt throughout my life. It was like I suddenly understood how I'd made them feel. And from that moment, I said, I will never, ever do this to someone again. I started to also go to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, which is really quite hardcore.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow.
Me and him broke up, and my friend was going through something similar. She'd come through a breakup. This is the summer of 2012. I always remember it because it was when the Olympics were on. And we decided to, we were going on this journey, and we started to do a blog about it, which was called Addictive Daughter. And we were talking about the quarter life crisis, struggles in relationships, struggles with money, struggles with where am I going in my life and my career, all of that sort of angst that we go through in our 20s. And because it was at that time, everyone talks about this stuff now, but back then, no one really was. They were talking about yoga and eating well, but they weren't talking about anxiety and depression, not in the way
that everything's gone boom now.
Yeah. But it was scary when we put it out, and because we were quite, it was quite new, we got a lot of press attention. We did that. We trained as life coaches. We trained in, CPT.
That was my next question. Like, when was the point that you thought, because obviously you were in drama school, because I'm also interested in that thought process. Like, when was the point when you went, actually, this is what I want to do. I know that this is my dharma. This is who I want to be and what I want to do.
Yeah. I love asking people that question too. So it was interesting because I realized at the end of this was the hard part. I realized at the end of my acting career, even though it had been subconsciously coming for a while, I actually consciously was like, it's the end of this, before I knew what the next stage was. And that was, I think I'd just come out of the breakup. It was like sort of May 2012, and I was in so much pain. But over the last sort of year and a half, even while I was in that relationship, I've been going to my Al-Anon meetings. I'd been reading all my mum's self-help books, really, really gotten into kind of just studying it. But it was for me, it wasn't because I'm going to, right, how can I make money out of this? How can I teach that? But I had this moment after that breakup. It must have been, I think it was about 2 months or so after, my friend's dad, the same friend who had that book that I'd taken on to Thailand with me, her dad, who's been always like a mentor to me, he's been like kind of a second dad in a way. He messaged me and he said, I've got tickets to this event. And I don't know why, but I feel called to tell you to go. I can't go. So I went to this event, and it was all about how to essentially use your story and your passion to create a business. And I remember going, and it was like, I had this, I cannot explain how powerful and weird it was. It was like electricity running through me. And it was like, these are what we're going to do. And this guy talked about, writing a book, writing different articles, having products or services, like potentially that would be coaching, all of this. And it was like that day, I was like, oh, I meant to start business.
And how interesting that you got recommended to, like, it wasn't even you that went to the event, it was somebody else that said you need to go to this. Like,
it was just one of those things. And, I always see that with my clients who, it's like, once you start on this path, you don't need to see the whole staircase, that Martin Luther King quote, you just, the first step, and you just follow your intuition. The next step, it all becomes clear.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
Because obviously I was like, oh my God, I've got to write a book, which I was actually already, I think I was about 6 months into writing a book, and I didn't know what it was. I knew it was about kind of my recovery journey and relationships, but I hadn't seen the bigger picture. And I was like, I suddenly saw how this book fitted in and who it was for. And
I'm so glad you said that, though, because I think that's something that people really need to understand. Is that you won't know all the pieces of the puzzle. You just have to take the action. You go to the first step that you're called to, and then it's almost like the more we go down that path, the more it's unveiled to us, and we discover what we're supposed to be doing. But you have to get in the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I actually think, on that note, Kitty, I've done this myself. I see a lot of people who, it's like they're so overwhelmed by how much there is to do or how many different directions they could go that they just kind of shut it out completely and go, I can't. They don't follow that first tiny step, which literally might be to email someone, to watch, whatever it is. They just kind of shut it out because it's too scary. And I so get that. And I've been there. But
one thing a day. Just do one thing a day towards your dream. That's all you've got to do. And it's like Alcoholics Anonymous, you kind of get through one day at a time. But if you do one step towards your dream, then it's coming. It's really coming.
And I've really seen that over my career, because I was I asked my friend Zoe, who was in a similar place at the same time, to join me. And so we created this blog together, got a lot of attention. Eventually, a few years later, we got a book deal. And by this point, we trained as I said, life coaches, all of that. So we had a lot of different things going on. But the one thing both of us weren't trained in was business. We were creative. So we had all of that side down. As much as we could. But it was like, for me, particularly the last few years, I have had to learn a lot about business. Now, the next stage of the journey is kind of really where my love coaching starts to take off. So it was 2015. And by this point, it was the summer 2015, we had the book deal. We were writing the book. I'd been single for 1.5 years at this time, which was a really, really, really long time.
Massive breakthrough.
I'd had a few kind of little dating things with people here or there, but I remember I had, I think, 3 different periods of 4 months at a time where there was no bloke messaging me. I was living at home with my parents to be able to do the work I was doing, because we weren't making much money at that point. We had a bit coming in, and I was still working as teaching acting, teaching English literature, all of that to make ends meet. And I'd had all this time, like, no boys validating me, and so I really had to validate myself, and it was hard at times, but it was really the training ground. And I remember this was so significant. I finished the first draft of The Inner Fix. The next day, we were going, or 2 days later, we were going to speak at Wilderness Festival in Oxfordshire, which I'd been to the year before. And I had written in The Inner Fix that I was, I really felt ready to meet my life partner now. I'd done a lot of work on myself, and I was really excited for that. And I didn't know when or how or when it was going to happen, but I was ready for it. And then the next day, we did our speech at the festival. That night, I was kind of dancing in one of the kind of hidden valleys in the festival. It was amazing. It must have been about midnight or so. And I just had this feeling in my stomach, which said, there's thousands of people around me. I had a feeling in my stomach that said, turn turned around, and there was my now boyfriend, Joe. And we literally didn't say a word. It was just electric straight away.
That
and
is quick manifestation.
Oh my God.
The day before.
Yeah. It was, you know what was so key though, is that I had this moment just before I felt that feeling in my stomach. I'd been at the festival the year before, and I'd done this thing. I don't know if it's appropriate to say the name that I give this, because it is very uncouth.
It's all right. We don't censor anything.
Okay. Well, I call this catting for cock.
Sounds fun.
Sorry to anyone if that's offended them, but basically what this means, we've all done this, we might just not have called it this, is when you might be single, you might be in a relationship, but it's when you go out with your friends and you're out at a bar or wherever you are, and you're just looking around for good looking guys to get with. You know what I mean? You want that.
Yeah, you're on the pull would be.
Oh, that's a better way of saying it.
Possibly a nicer expression.
Yeah, exactly. You're out on the pool, but you have that intention to find them, and you feel quite desperate, and you don't feel present with your friends at all. That was a story of my life, and I always was able to do it. Like I never found. This is what I say to a lot of my clients. It's like, it's not that easy. It's I never found it hard to get a guy. I just found it hard to maintain any sort of healthy relationship. But I just remember being at the festival on the dance floor, and that impulse, because I'd done that the year before. I'd been like this the whole time, and I wasn't present, and I didn't really enjoy myself.
Yeah, of course, because you're not really there.
Exactly. And because the following year I was like, I've just spoken here about being present at this festival. I've really got to put my money in where my mouth is, and I know that I get triggered to go on the pull, cat for cock, whatever you want to call it. And I just had this moment when I was dancing where I went to do it, and I went, no, I'm here for me. And I just connected to the music. And I really felt like I connected to, if you want to call it God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. But I was like, this is enough. This is enough. I don't need anything else. And it makes me want to cry or get emotional.
Aww.
It was in that moment that I felt the turnaround. It was like I really understood that lesson. And that's when I suddenly got the relationship. And that's really what my work is about. And, you know, we actually lost each other. We spent that night together. The next day he messaged me. We basically were not getting each other's messages because of the crap signal at the festival. And at about 11 p.m. at night, I was in a tent with some friends, and I felt that feeling again turn around. Saw him walking out again. Thousands and thousands and thousands.
Wow.
There he was walking out the tent. I ran over, and basically the rest is history. We just, you know, left. We were with each other for the rest of the festival, had the most amazing time, fell in love completely. The following year, mine and my friend Joey's book came out, which was pretty much a year after I'd met Joe. And we had a TV deal on the cards. And yeah, both it's really weird because my boyfriend is Joey, and
I just was thinking of it.
Joey as well. So yeah. And they also weirdly lived around the corner from each other in London, literally around the corner, which was really useful when I was. Yeah,
of course. When you're visiting one, you could visit the other.
Oh, so good. Yeah. So a year into you know, that when I met Joe, and you know, and then our book had just come out, and we got the TV deal, and we actually realised, you know what? We thought this was going to be the beginning, but the book actually feels like the end. We've been doing it for 4 years. We'd loved working together. It'd been really challenging, but it was just time to do our own thing. We're very different, and we kind of we wanted to go in different directions, and it just felt like we know we can do this on our own now. So that's what happened. And the minute that happened, and that for me was very challenging because it was an ending. It was like a relationship breaking up, even though there was no hard feelings. It was painful, but I knew straight away it's relationships and love coaching. That is, I want to focus purely on that, and so that's what I've been doing for now 2 years. I officially launched my business in February of last year, but I was kind of working on the scenes behind it. And yeah, I've been just kind of working as a love coach. I have my own online digital love coaching program, which was my one-to-one that I put as a digital program. I do a lot of speaking, run workshops. I write articles for magazines. I'm working on a new book. So that, Joe and I, we were traveling earlier this year for 5 months. We went traveling around the world, and that really that's going to be another book in itself, because that was such a test, you know, and I learned
can imagine
that. So it's been a very busy but very, very amazing few years.
And what an incredible story. Like, I have to commend you because, you know, like, you've really done the work. Like, you know, I think this sort of show is all about getting people to understand they all have a story, they all have a journey like you and I have, you know, and it's about them stepping into it. And so I'd love to ask you what your advice is actually for people listening. Maybe they've got an inkling about what they want to do, but like you said, they're not 100% sure how to do it and how to go about it. Like, what would your advice be for someone listening?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the quotes that has really, really, really helped me over the years is from a woman called Marie Forleo. I'm sure you're aware of her. She's an American business coach. She's brilliant, digital entrepreneur. And she says, clarity comes from engagement, not thought.
Love it.
And one of the things I struggle at the start is I try to think my way through of like what I should do and how I should do it. The only way know is to try things out and to be curious and to experiment, just to have fun with it and take the pressure off yourself. Chances are it will take some time to start. If you know, this is, you want to go into a business, it might take some time to start you know, seeing some money from it, unless that's what you're really, really skilled in. But what you don't want to do is spend a load of money on a website or a training, you know, an online program, if you don't know for sure that that's the way you're heading. So at the beginning, I just say, read a lot of books, like give yourself maybe a deadline of a couple of months where you're just going to go, right, no pressure. This is not where I'm getting into the business. This is where I'm just focusing on like, you know, the Joseph Campbell quote, follow your bliss. What lights me up? So before you get into the nitty gritty of how I'm going to do this, following what lights you up, what books am I drawn to? What YouTube videos? You know, there's so much stuff for free. You don't need to spend a penny until you get clearer about what it is for you. I really believe in meditation and free writing, journaling after you meditate. It's so good to touch your intuition. All of that, you know, all of this is kind of the very feminine process, as it were, where you're getting in touch, receiving guidance, having fun with it, letting yourself make mistakes. Maybe you want to set up a blog and you don't really know what it's about, but you're just, from these initial stages, you're just starting with something. You don't need to spend loads on a logo or anything like that.
People get too in their heads, don't they? And consequently, they don't do anything.
Exactly. So it's give yourself, and honestly, even when I think about that, like that, it takes such a pressure off. 2-3 months, however long you want to just explore and have fun. And maybe start a blog, but you're not going to spend any big money on it. You can do it all for free. Once you've done that, I guarantee you are going to have learned some things about what lights you up. I mean, if I'd done that process back in the day, it would have been, oh, of course it's just relationships. We really struggled with Addictive Daughter because we were looking around us, which is okay to do, but then we were getting lost in, oh, but she's doing that or they're doing this, and should, you know, in getting in our head again, as opposed to just forget what other people are doing, focus on what lights you up.
I think that's really, really good advice, because that's the other thing that nowadays that people get so, you know, Instagram and Facebook, people are always, you know, snooping. As much as we hate to say we're not, we bloody are, you know, we're looking at what other people are doing, and that's dangerous because no one is you, no one has your life path, no one has like your life journey or your dharma. You know, there's going to be nobody who's gone through what Persia's gone through in exactly the same way, exactly the same experiences. So, yeah, I think stay in your own lane is a massive piece of advice that people need to follow. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's once you've done that part, which you can work with someone, you can get a mentor to work with them. There's also a lot of free sort of meetup groups that you can like have some, you know, creative accountability. So if you're someone, I've always been someone, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm quite good at that. So I'm quite good at, you know, I can procrastinate, but if I'm like, right, this is what's happening this month, it's going to happen. If you in that stage think, you know what, I still need accountability, maybe you can look at hiring a coach or mentor, or, you know, doing something where, even if it's just with a friend, where you say, right, this is what I want to achieve by the end of the month. Can we meet up and can, you know, you hold me accountable to that? But I think really when you want to start investing money, it's when you kind of a little bit, you've done that process and you're more clear about, okay, this is what lights me up. This is what I'm kind of drawn to. I like speaking, I like writing, or whatever it is. And now I don't know how to take myself sort of from there to it launching as maybe it's a business. And whether you decide to do a really good digital program that's going to help you with that, or work one-to-one with a mentor, which I really encourage at the beginning, because when you're starting out, it's quite scary because you haven't necessarily done something like this before. So it's nice to have a cheerleader there. You do program, obviously you've got Facebook groups and all that sort of thing where you'll get that encouragement, but it depends on you. But I think what I would say then, it's the same thing that I say to people who want to work with me with love coaching. It's like, I created the program that it took me essentially 8 years to learn what I have put into that program, which is 8 weeks long. Now you might not want to, you might not do it all in 8 weeks, but it's all there. And that's where it's like the stream, like investing a bit of money and just, not cutting corners, because you go deep into it, but it just gives you a kind of roadmap, a blueprint for where you want to be headed. And I wish I'd done that earlier with business, because with business, again, because we were creators, we were very used to living hand to mouth. So we were trying to cut corners and as in not spend money. And we were just looking around and kind of guessing what people were doing, but we didn't have the full strategy. So it took a long time I wish I'd invested more money sooner, so that I would, do you know what I mean? I would have streamlined a lot of the lessons with business that have taken me years to learn, but but that's been part of my process. And it's fine, but I now really do see the value of having a mentor, or a coach, a business coach, or doing like digital courses. I think, I've created my own, because I really do think there's such a great modern way for us to learn. Some people don't want to work with someone one-to-one. They just want to kind of do it by themselves. So yeah, I definitely suggest working with someone if you can.
Yeah, and I would totally agree. I would say, getting around a community of people that are doing or achieving what you want to do, because as you said, it almost rubs off on you, and then spending the money on someone who's been there and done it, because then it helps you leapfrog exactly to where they are. Like, if someone was having real problems with relationships, they've got 8 years worth of info that they can tap into, that you've kind of pulled out of and you've lived through, that means that they don't have to make the same mistakes.
Yeah. Oh God, I just think, I wish I'd had this. I wish I'd had this, my teenage years. But if not, in my sort of early 20s, I would have saved myself so much grief and heartbreak. Like, this program, it really is everything. I've done it for the early 20s version of myself. That's who I've done it for. And I'm so proud of it. But it really is, the key is just, don't try and do this by yourself. Another great thing we did do early on, was we got to know people in our field. So it's nice, as well as having a coach, to kind of have peers in your field, which you kind of pointed to a little bit. So we went to a lot of events of people who were kind of, several steps ahead of us, who were speaking on stages, doing all the things that we wanted to do. And we got to know a lot of those speakers and, to interview them for various things. But also we got to know the other people attending. And a lot of the other people attending those events were doing sort of similar things to us. So we could collaborate with them. We got to know them, because again, I was an actress, so I didn't have any friends doing this online space thing.
Yeah, of course.
Therefore, it could feel quite lonely. So go out there, and again, you can go to events that are free if you look at meetup.com. There's just so much on the internet that you can find, so you don't have to do this alone. That's the key.
Yeah, and I think man is not an island. I think the more we reach out, the more we're honest and open and authentic about what's going on for us and where we're at, then the more that we are going to find the right people that can help us. I always find, like you were saying about when you declared to the universe that you were ready, I find that with like, okay, well, what's next in the business? And then the right person appears. As long as you're being true to yourself and following what feels right for you and not trapped in a job that you hate, I think it's important that we are authentic with ourselves and we follow our dharma and we follow the path that really resonates for us. And then I think the universe has our back and will follow us.
Absolutely. It's the courage to take that step.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we said this at our book launch. It's leap and the net will appear.
So true.
And you don't really know in what form the net is going to be.
Yeah.
That's why it's scary. But it does. It's, fortune really does favor the brave and the bold. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have even mistakes and failures. There are so many things, business wise or, relationship wise, all of those things. And I'm like, actually, I don't even see them as failure.
You learn so much, don't you, through your challenges.
Oh my God. And look, what would I have had to tell you if I hadn't had a spicy story where I'd had to watch a failure and mistake? Like it would have been very boring. That's like, it's the hero's journey, is that there's obstacles to overcome, and sometimes you don't, but in the end you do. And I think that's the key. It's just like, sometimes I get so annoyed when people say this, but it is true. It's learning opportunities. It's
and I think
to grow.
Yeah, and it's also about having fun. I think people forget that as well. Like, life's supposed to be fun. We take it all so seriously, and we get all in our heads, and we get all caught up that we're not being successful and this isn't happening. Actually, if you just dance with it and have fun, my thing, Persia, is all about people following their bliss and people really doing what lights them up. And I think when you go towards the things that you really enjoy, it's not work. It is, your passion. It is enjoyable, and you can do it more, all the hours that God sends, because it doesn't feel like work. Sometimes I know it's what I have to learn, because sometimes when I'm doing the stuff like this, I'm like, I feel guilty because I'm not working. And then I have to check myself and say, actually, this is what you do now,
Yeah.
This is fun. It's okay. Yeah. You can do that.
Yeah, totally. It should, the whole journey is hard. I mean, journey for anything, journey in relationships and business and just all of it. It's hard at times, but yeah, if it's not fun, like, what is the point? And it's and you get to choose that. I think, I'm sure many people listening to this will identify, I'm an overachieving perfectionist. I've got incredibly high standards for myself. So I've really had to work at being gentle, being kind, being compassionate, letting myself off the hook, whilst at the same time not dropping the ball, not becoming complacent. It's a balancing act. And, that's all we can ever hope to do is our best. And again, that applies to everything in life. And there's going to be some days where your best is not going to be as good as other days, like that day of the wedding where I did a great job with the leading of the ceremony and marrying my friends. But then I dropped the ball in my own relationship, the irony of it. And I thought, and of course I had those feelings of, you failed, you just married them, you're a love coach. He had done something wrong, but I did not react well. And I really, didn't handle it well. And the next day I beat myself up, and I really had to come back to, what? I'm not going to hide this and just talk about the wedding. I'm going to own the fact that of what happened at the end of that night and how I handled it not very well, because I want to show people that I'm not some guru who knows that that's rubbish.
And when you told me that story, I think you told me that story the first time we connected, and I thought, I really like her. She's really honest. That was the first thing I thought, because you told me that story right from the outset. You told me about the wedding and a fight with your boyfriend, and I thought, I like her. She's just like totally honest.
I always, whenever I share anything that I'm like, I don't know if I should share that. Does it make me look unprofessional?
Always gets a good reaction.
People say, thank you so much for your honesty. Because the fact is, I like human relationships are hard, and I'm a human, and of course I'm going to go through the rest of my life, me and Joe never having a fight, or me always behaving perfectly, even though I'm a love coach. I'm also human. And I think that's the key is to own it.
And I think as human beings, we've got to get over this sort of way of being seen, or that we can't be honest about who we are and what's really going on for us. Like, this is one of the things that I talk about in my Facebook group. It's like, the only way we're going to be able to work on this stuff and deal with this stuff is we're truly authentic with one another. We don't have to be perfect, Exactly. We have to be honest.
Exactly. And the thing is, this is for anyone who is looking to or already doing the work I'm doing. Notice how I haven't told you what the fight was about specifically, because that doesn't feel appropriate for, Joe, because Joe is my boyfriend, and I wouldn't want to put something out there.
Yeah, sure.
Comfortable with it.
Boundaries.
There are certain things, I can use this as an example in the story, but still have my personal life and go, there are certain things that are between me and Joe, and actually it doesn't serve. It's not. It won't really make a difference what it is about, because the point is, I messed up. I didn't do so well. It doesn't really matter what it was about. And I'm choosing to own that and to share that and to kind of grow. And that's, for me, I think I said this to you, I'm a love coach not because I find relationships really easy. I'm a love coach because I find them hard. And actually there's something, I'm the sort of person that's like, I like to be held accountable to, because if I wasn't a love coach, there wouldn't have been quite as much incentive to kind of sort things out and work on it as there were when I realized, I have a responsibility first to myself, to my relationship, but also to the people that I coach and that I work with. I want to show them that, just because they've done my program, it doesn't mean that everything's perfect. It means it's an opportunity to keep growing and learning, and it's okay. It's okay. And I think once you have that pressure taken off you, you can relax a bit, and actually you then don't make as many mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Because you're gentler.
The other thing that really freed me was about being, rather than being an expert, was about being like, I feel like I'm in the purpose conversation You know, I'm not an expert in this. I'm just in this conversation. It's something that really intrigues me and interests me, and I'm going deeper on. And that freed me. I think that was Denise Duffield Thomas that used to talk about the money stuff and being in the money conversation. And that was so freeing for me, because you know, we all have this imposter syndrome, you know, like what are we good enough to do what we're doing? And actually, if we're just in that conversation, you're in the love conversation, you're in the relationship conversation. I personally feel like I'm in the purpose conversation. You know, it takes the pressure off and we can enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. That's really helpful. Yeah, that I think there's just so much going around. Expert this, expert that, guru. And actually, I'm now a human being who's in the conversation of love, dating, and relationships. That for me was actually really helpful. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. It was so freeing for me. It like freed me up massively. But how can people find you, Persia? Like, they want to connect with you?
I'm pretty much Persia Lawson across everything. So PersiaLawson.com, Persia Lawson on at Persia Lawson on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think it's Persia Lawson Love Coach on Facebook. But yeah, I've got a weird name, so it's pretty easy to find.
I love your name. I was going to say how gorgeous it is. I think it's fantastic. Really like it. Really unusual, which is fantastic.
Yeah, which I used to hate, but now because I used to get when I was at school, oh, you're Persia. And I thought, oh God, what on earth have they heard? And now it tends to be, oh, you're Persia, which for me, even that slight intonation change, like, okay, I'm doing all right in life.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I know that you sharing your story, it will have really helped our listeners. So thank you.
My pleasure.
We will see you next week with another amazing guest on Kitty Talks. Bye-bye.
This podcast was sponsored by my Do Your Dharma course. Create a life so good that you pinch yourself. This 8-week online course demystifies Dharma and shows you how to tune in to why you're really here. Go to www.kittytalks.com/do your Dharma.